consent agenda, where we have two items this evening: the approval of the minutes from October 14th and the personnel actions for October 28th. Is there any question or concern on that? Either one of those items? Okay, without objection, we'll pass a motion to approve the consent agenda by unanimous consent. Is there an objection to doing so?
The consent.
Here,
I'm just reading what you're reading.
okay,
I'll read along.
hearing none, the consent agenda is hereby approved. We will go to item number 5, which is presentations. We have two this evening, and the first one is from Ms. Cheryl Weiss from the Oak Park Youth Assistance.
Thank you so much. Hello, everybody, and thank you for allowing me to speak to you tonight. I am the Vice Chair of the Board of Directors of Oak Park Youth Assistance. I served as chair for 5 years, and I'm here for a few reasons. I promise nothing is hard. But one of our requirements in order to add new board members to our board is we need the approval of all 3 sponsors. That includes the Oak Park City Council, that includes you, and that includes the Oakland County Circuit Court Family Division. So Ms. Greer has the information for you that you'll be receiving, but there are 2 volunteers that have spent continuous time volunteering with us, have made excellent contributions to our organization and to our students that we would like to recommend. The first one is Emily Clark. She works for the City of Oak Park. She's the HR generalist, and she has done so much to volunteer for us. She really deserves this position. She's volunteered for the 4th of July Pancake Breakfast. She has participated in monthly board meetings. She assisted in the planning of the recent Making It Look Good event on homecoming, where we had all kinds of homecoming day. The kids got free hairstyles and nails and barber. It was phenomenal. She was one of the ones that planned it. She sold t-shirts at the farmer's market, and she helped at the concert in the park last year. She wants to be on the board to help influence programs and policies that support and empower young people, and she hopes to make a meaningful difference in their lives. The other volunteer is Ms. Deanna Taylor. She is a homemaker and a cosmetologist. She also was one of the planners for our very successful event for homecoming, Making It Look Good. She has also volunteered for the 4th of July Pancake Breakfast, participated in many board meetings, and she assisted in the creation and the planning of that event. She wants to serve on the board because the mission of Oak Park Youth Assistance aligns with her personal beliefs and goals. She desires to make a difference by continuing to contribute in positive ways to the organization and the community. So at your next board meeting, or when it's convenient, I'd ask that you please vote to approve her to be appointed to the Oak Park Youth Assistance Board of Directors. One other thing I wanted to do is share with you, we do have a relatively new caseworker. Her name is Karen Beeler, and she is wonderful. You may or may not know what happens is when a student is referred to us, whether it's from a parent, for a school administrator, or anyone can refer. Karen Beeler is the one they meet with first, and she assesses their needs, and they go on from there. She can provide short-term counseling. She has excellent resources. She is phenomenal. She's really made a difference. I want to highlight a few things we've done over the last year, some things that you may not be aware of, you may. We have provided social work services. We have provided emergency assistance in the form of rent assistance, car repair, food assistance, and utility assistance to the parents in the school district. We provided scholarships for driver's ed, karate, and theater classes. We do provide summer camp scholarships if the families would like that. We do holiday help for families who cannot provide gifts for their children, and we are kicking that off now. If you'd like to please spread the word. We are looking for gift cards, especially to Target or Meijer or Amazon, that parents can then provide gifts. They can be sent to us at oakparkya@gmail.com. Or if you have gifts laying around, you can contact us and we will get that from you. Last year we had a wonderful room filled with toys that we got donated, and we had the parents come get them. It was awesome. We have provided tutoring. We have purchased headphones for elementary schools this year. We are doing a social emotional support to teens in the Making It program. We're planning to do one hopefully every other month. Our next one will be amazing. It's in process. You will be amazed when you hear what we are pulling off. Community events, trunk or treat, pancake breakfast, library program, winter blast, farmers market. We do everything we can to make ourselves known in the community and get our information out there. So the other thing I wanted to share is we are looking for representation. If you are able to think of anyone to be at our board meetings, not you, we know how busy you are, and Mr. Smith already very generously gives us our time when he's able to, and we appreciate you so much. We would really like a school personnel to join us, whether it's a social worker would be ideal, a counselor, someone not tied to a classroom that can meet with us the second Thursday of each month at 12 o'clock. It will help us to know what's going on in the schools, what the needs are. Are you seeing a lot of acting out behavior? Do we need to do something to address that? What is it that we can help you with? We want to support the schools. You are one of our sponsors. That's why we're here. We want to support the kids and families. The best way to find out what the needs are is to talk to people in the schools that see these kids and families every day. So that is what we wanted to share. I do have a brochure that I gave to Ms. Greer as well, you can look at, as well as the information I just shared. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you for your support, and I appreciate you. If there's any questions, I'm happy to answer.
Trustee Smith.
Yes, I don't have a question. I do actually have a comment, and I think Trustee Sandra Clark also, who volunteers as well as I do it with the Oak Park Youth Association. We identify your heart. You do hard work in the community, and we really appreciate it. And wherever we can support, we're here just a phone call away. But I just appreciate you and the rest of the team and all that you do. So thank you very much.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Thank you. Trustee Clark.
I just want to echo what Trustee Smith said. Cheryl, I appreciate all the hard work that you do with OPYA and with the Oak Park Neighbors Group, and you're just such a staple. And I appreciate, everything that you do to support families. We were a recipient of Christmas gifts last year when things were a little bit tight, and you took care of everything, and we really appreciate that. And whatever we can do to support you, please sponsor it.
Thank you so much, and thank you for all your support too, your volunteering. You are amazing. Thank you.
Quick question. Who
Sure.
are the other board members?
I'm sorry.
Who else is on the board?
Oh my gosh, you would, okay. I should
If
have
you
a
don't,
list.
I'm not trying to do gotcha questions.
Okay. Kimberly Schaff, our library director, is the chair.
Yep.
Carla, and I'm forgetting her last name.
Allen.
Thank you. Carla Allen is our secretary. Our treasurer is Crystal Van Vleck. That will be changing because she's accepted a position in Berkeley. And we have a number of other members. I actually can get that for you in a second.
All right. No, we're good. You don't have to give me anything else.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
All right, thank you.
And much appreciated for all the work that you do.
Thank you.
So thank you. Okay, yeah, that makes sense. All right, item 5B, Spring 2024 Data Presentation, Office of Teaching and Learning. I had Kwame down for that, but you don't look like Kwame.
She's trying her best. Good evening.
Good evening.
To our esteemed board, to our central office colleagues. Thank you guys for giving us the opportunity to come up here and talk to you. I think last time President Allen described our presentation as riveting, right? I think that's
Good news.
Could very well be. That sounds like one of the words I would use.
So our goal this evening is to be thorough,
Go ahead.
yet concise with our presentation. And so, as you can see before you, this is our Office of Teaching and Learning with myself, Director Murphy, and Director Bucktiger. Last time I just had the opportunity to introduce them to you. Tonight you'll have the opportunity to see them in action as they will be part of the presenting team, the majority part of the presenting team. So, as we get ready to talk about our data, I just want to give us the context of where we are overall when we talk about teaching and learning inside of our district. And so what you're looking at up here is a matrix. And our reflection says it's okay to be where you are, it's just not okay to stay there, all right? And what we have up here is a matrix of learning organization, right? So at the top left, what you have is what we would call lucky organizations. And those are organizations that may be getting great results, but really they have no true system or idea as to why they're getting great results. If something was to change, then those results would also change. And that's what we call a lucky organization. Up under there at the bottom left, we have what's called a losing organization. That's an organization that's getting very low results, and they also have no idea of why their results are so low. So what that simply means is that they're probably going to replicate bad practices because they have no idea as to what they're doing is actually giving them those type of results. And then at the top right, what we have is a leading organization. And those are organizations that are getting great results, right? And they know exactly what they're doing to get those results. And those organizations are most likely to keep doing what they're doing to get those results. And then at the bottom right, what we have is what's called a learning organization. A learning organization is an organization that may not be getting the best result at any given time. However, they are very much aware of why they're not getting those results and what they need to do to actually change it so that they can change their results, right? So those organizations are not likely to repeat past mistakes, right? They're most likely to keep getting better. And I wanted to use this because I can clearly say that where we are now, we are a learning organization. So you're going to get an opportunity to see where our data is, but what we're most excited about is that we know exactly why our data looks the way it looks, and we have a very clear and concise plan to address that data so that it changes. So right now, Oak Park is most definitely falling inside of the category of a learning organization. And so, with that, I'm going to turn it over to our Director of Data, Sherry Bucktiger.
Good evening, everyone. We're going to pass out note cards because it's such a riveting presentation. We want to make sure that you guys can take notes and ask any questions. Everybody loves a good data show. So I'm going to review our fall data. We'll be looking at last year's spring data, which we're going to review the goals, define our targets, and talk about our action plans. So to get started, we're going to review our Michigan Integrated Continuous Improvement Plan, or our MICIP plan. And with that, we have two goals. We have one goal for math, that at the end of 2025, our students will be 10% proficient in math, and our students will be 28% proficient in reading. So currently, at the end of the school year, when we took our state assessments, we were 3.4% proficient in math and 15.71% proficient in reading. And while we do see a very moderate decline from the 22-23 school year, we know that there is a lot of room to grow here. And as Mr. Stevens said, we know we've done a lot of work to really establish what our data says and the story it tells, and then the plan to fix that moving forward. So to get started, we're looking at our MSTEP, PSAT, and SAT. And if you don't know what those are, the PSAT is the Preliminary Scholastic Aptitude Test. The SAT is the Scholastic Aptitude Test, and the MSTEP is a Michigan Student test of educational progress. When we look at the scores, we see that at the very bottom, you see they're sectioned off. So we have M-STEP 3 through 7, PSAT 8, 10, and the SAT taken by the 11th grade students. So we're looking right now at our ELA results. The percent proficient, or the ones who met standard, are in green, and the orange are the students that did not. So when we're looking at the elementary school, or the, let's say, 3-7, we see that they are all ranging around 12% on average. So when we look at our students who take M-STEP, 12% of them are proficient. We did see a significant peak in our middle school for that 8th grade PSAT with 40% proficiency. And then, again, a smaller decline from the year previous, which I will review in this next slide, for our 11th grade. This chart right here is comparing the 22-23 school year with the 23-24 school year. The last school year it's in green, aqua, it's in that color. So our most notable change that we have is that 3rd grade going from 18% proficient to 9% proficient at the end of last school year. So that is our most notable decline. And then we have, you see consistency throughout the rest, where it's not very significant changes, maybe 1% improvement or 1% decline throughout, with exception of that 8th grade PSAT. And one of the reasons that we looked at what happened in 8th grade, we love to see that. We love to see 40% of them are proficient, but what happened and how did that peak? So when we really looked into it, that's a different assessment. They went from taking the M-STEP to the PSAT. So they're looking at similar but not the same content, different skills. So you see a giant peak there. So then when we do our data review, we look at our data review and say, how do our newly enrolled students compare to the students that we've had for 2+ years? And so in the 2023 school year, we enrolled 162 new students in the grade band of 4 through 7. And of those 162 students, 19 of them met proficiency, while 141 of them did not. So we are enrolling students that are significantly below proficiency as we enroll them. So we are getting them with a lot of steps that we have to take before they hit proficiency. In comparison to the same grade band, 4 through 7, that have been with us for 2+ years, 85 students, and that's about 18%. So our students who have been with us for about 2 years are growing roughly at a 9% average faster than those students that came enrolled last year. Some notable growth areas. On the right side of this, you see that 5 students went from not proficient to proficient, so they jumped 3 categories. 7 went from proficient to advanced, 15 from partially proficient to proficient, and 58 grew from not proficient to partially. One thing to really note in our district is we do a really great job of moving our students from not proficient to partially proficient. We move them fast, but we are not moving them as fast from partially proficient to proficient, and that's where we need to be. Notable decline of the students who tested last year, 509 of them did not grow at all. They stayed exactly the same, which means that some of them stayed 1 to 2 years below or partially proficient. And then some other areas, 23 of the students went from proficient to partially, so that's a drop, and 53 students declined from partially to not. So we are seeing a trend that we are moving students from not proficient to partially, but also dropping students in other categories. When we look at this chart, next up is the proficiency by grade band, just another example. So we're looking at our students in elementary school, 3-5 are 12% proficient. The middle school is 21% proficient, and high school 17, which is going to give you that average that we have of just under 16% proficient in English. Then that question of how are the schools doing independently? What's happening at Key, what's happening at Einstein, what's happening at Pepper, and so on. So this chart is going to show you school by grade. So we have Einstein in orange, Key blue, and Pepper. If you notice that in 3rd grade, Pepper did an excellent job. They had significant difference from the others. And then in 4th grade, Key did something incredible in that 4th grade, right? They're at 22%, which is significantly different than the 9% or 11. And then when we get into grade 5, we see that Einstein did a really good job, 14%, Pepper at 18%, but those aren't really big significant changes between that 14 and 18%. The strategies they were working on obviously worked because they were doing really well. So we're really digging into that data by school,
by teacher and seeing what went well and what didn't. Same chart, but this one goes 6th grade to 11th grade. OPA is green, NOVA blue, and the high school purple. And some interesting things that we see in here, we see that in 10th grade, we had students at NOVA that outperformed some of the students in the high school. And in other categories, in the 11th grade, we have students at NOVA had 4% and the high school had 14%. So it's a matter of how we're really wrapping our hands around all of our students, because we need to look at them as a whole group, strategies and the resources that we use. The next, I believe, 8 slides are deeper dives for you, and I want to make sure you had that so that you had the opportunity to look and see what's happening in each building in each grade. This is from the MSTEP Dynamic Score Reports, but it gives you a breakdown of each grade and how many are proficient, advanced, partially proficient, and not proficient. And the expectation is that those students who are proficient, let's say 3rd grade at Einstein, we had 4.2 that were proficient. Next year, or this year when they take that test, that those students will remain, and we'll also collect that 30% that's in the partially proficient and move them forward. So just a deeper dive of the expectations that we have per grade, per subject. I'm going to skip through these because you have them in your packets and you can dig through them. All right, the next part of that was English. Now we're going to get to the slide that is the MSTEP, PSAT, SAT results for math as a district overview. And math is our most troubling area within the district. When we look at our scores across the board, you see that the highest score, the highest proficiency is 3rd grade at 9%, and the rest of the grades in the district are roughly 3%, with some of them being 0% proficient. Going back to the proficiency comparing 22-23 to 24, you see that the trend is pretty similar to English, only increasing 1 or decreasing 1 across the board, which is why at the end of the presentation you see that we are only 0.4% difference in our math from the 23 to the 24 school year. So not a significant decline, but a decline nonetheless. Same chart as far as the grade band goes. Our strongest grade band for math is the elementary with 3 through 5, and then the 3 through 8, which is a lot of our accountability reports, has the next highest proficiency rate. Breakdown by school. So Einstein is purple, I guess that's pink. Key is green, and Pepper is blue. And it is really consistent with what they did with English. If you remember English, for Pepper in 3rd grade, they did a great job. Key was leading the way in 4th grade, and Pepper with a slight marginal change in 5th grade. Moving on to the middle school, comparing OPA to NOVA. NOVA only tested 2 6th graders, 4 7th graders, and 3 8th graders, so their numbers were not showing up the way, but they did not have anyone that was proficient, but you wouldn't see that in the charts. I just want to make sure that you knew why it said 0. They did test the students. We tested over 98% of all of our students. And then this is the high school. Again, Oak Park High School is in blue, NOVA is in green. Same story with NOVA here. Our 9th graders are 5% proficient, leading the way, and 10th and 11th grade are both 1% or less proficient at the state assessments. Again, the next 8 slides are deeper dives into the classrooms per building. Perfect. So I'm going to go through these. This was to make sure that you all had opportunity to dig through that information. So as a data reflection, we see all this and we all have the same feeling. What's happening? So when we look at 2004, some of the most significant changes were in 3rd grade. We saw an alarming decline when we look at it from 2019 to 2024. And that was the pre-COVID, post-COVID. And so there was the most significant decline with the 3rd graders. It continued with the decline, but we saw some promise in 5th grade and going on to 6th grade. And math was the most troubling for the district, with the greatest overall decline and ending last year with the year previous with under 4% proficient in math across the grade bands. So the idea is what happened? What are some of these potential causes? How did this happen? And so when we were brainstorming, looking at our data, looking at all of the things that could have been, we had a high staff turnover. A response to that is that we have new teacher and hiring incentives. We had high vacancies in our core classes. So sometimes you see a giant dip in a math class. What happened in that 4th or 5th grade that may have had a substitute? So this year there's a greater focus on hiring core subjects, and we have a significantly less vacancy rate in our core subjects across the board. We know that the testing environment was not ideal in a lot of the classrooms. So we're streamlining the testing environment. A lot more oversight, a lot more participation with testing teams, testing coordinators, and making sure that we're all on the same page with expectations. What's happening in one room needs to happen in all of the rooms. We had a challenging school culture, and the response to that is in the implementation of capturing kids' hearts across the board to really work on that school culture. And then the 3rd graders, as we see that big dip at 3rd grade, those 3rd grade students were the ones that had virtual learning K1 and 2 during that COVID time. So this is their first time taking a standardized test, and really some of their first times in schools. So those are some of the responses in our data reflection. Overall, what do we do with that? What are our data strategies? So as a Department of Teaching and Learning, we came with our data strategies. And first thing was identifying the students. Looking at our data, triangulating our MSTEP, SAT, iReady, and our gradebook to say, what is happening with the individual student? Tracing them back to 3+ years. When were they proficient? When were they not proficient? Where are their skill sets? From that data review, from all of the students, K-12, 3 years plus of data to track them along, we then created focus groups. We had a group of students that were partially proficient, let's say 1 or 2 points off of being proficient. Those students were then in a focus group. From that focus group, we created customized courses. At the high school, they have college prep, math support, same thing with the middle school, and an intervention plan. And all of these things will be gone over more from our curriculum director. So we implemented these specialized classes, working on these focus groups, and making sure that we aren't forgetting about the students that are in the partially proficient or not proficient, but adding on to those, making sure everybody has the same plan. We created pathways for everybody, so every student K-12 has a unique tailored pathway, either on iReady or iExcel, that is customized to their unique needs that they can access essentially 24 hours, and they can continue to grow with that. And we're monitoring that, so the teachers are responsible for making sure that students complete 2 lessons per week, 40 to 90 minutes, and completing it at 80%. Those are going into data chats, both with the teacher and the building leader, as well as from teaching and learning, having those conversations with the building leaders, making sure that we're staying on track for that. And with all that monitoring of all the progress, we, based on the linking studies, if they complete all of the things in the pathways, then they will grow and hit their average typical growth on MSTEP and on all of the benchmark assessments. So to get a little bit deeper into that, I'm going to pass this over to Director Murphy.
Good evening, board, and to our superintendent and cabinet. We're going to continue the conversation around so what, now what. We don't want this singular story to define the trajectory and capacity of all of the students and staff of Oak Park School District, right? And we understand that we have to have a multifaceted plan in order to address the whole child along with the whole educator. So our so what, now what? These are our focus priorities for this school year, which began last year as we looked at the trends in our data to get us well prepared to kick off this year with strong action steps to lead the path forward. And so what you see in the upper right-hand corner are what we call our 5 focus priorities. And these are the 5 big buckets that we live into to ensure equity across our district, to make sure every child, every educator gets what they need in a tailored manner with some critical research-based strategies to make sure that we are moving the needle forward. So we're going to delve deeper into those 5 focus priority sections. The first one is what we teach, a guaranteed and viable curriculum. And just if anybody, asks you as a part of the Oak Park School District School Board, what is Oak Park focused on? This is the work that we're doing every day in all of our schools with our principals and our staff, as well as our students, if they are able to comprehend these themes. But our first priority is creating a guaranteed and viable curriculum for the Oak Park School District. What does that mean? Guaranteed means that no matter what grade level or classroom the child is in, that they are getting the same skills taught to them, no matter if they're in math class A or math class B. Miss Pace's 3rd grade class or Miss Arteline's 1st grade class over at Einstein, they're getting the same thing. And then viable means, can the teachers teach the skills within the time frame provided, right? So that's a guaranteed and viable curriculum. Based on our trends and our data, we recognized that as a need last year. So beginning in November of '23, we began to identify teacher teams that began to identify the essential standards critical for student success in every grade level. We continued that work over the summer with our curriculum-based teams of them building out these Oak Park curriculum units that, again, here's the essential standard that is required for each grade level. Here are the plans that all teachers in that grade level are going to use to get us there. And again, this is all around fidelity of implementation and providing a high-quality educational experience to all of our children. This work continues in the fall, and in fact, this week we have an Oakland Schools consultant coming out for 3 days to work with our individual teacher teams to continue building out these Oak Park units. And as Director Buxziger alluded to, one thing that we are so excited about is these additional curriculum and instructional supports to create these individualized personal pathways. We've had iReady in our district for a number of years, right? But what's different, when we assess students in grades K through 8 to really determine what are their specific needs related to the data. And then we create these personalized plans. We've had this tool in the district, thank you to the board for approving that. One thing that is different this year is we're being more intentional, as Ms. Buxziger said, about how we're monitoring the usage. So are students passing 2 lessons a week and being in the system for 60 to 90 minutes a week to ensure that they are recovering those skills and those gaps and deficits that they have related to achieving grade level standards. With the addition this year for the high school, we have acquired, again, thank you to our superintendent and our board, NWEA MAP assessment, measures of academic progress. We felt like this was a better measure of high schoolers' closeness to achieving grade level mastery, and so we use this tool to determine what our high school students need for their personalized learning paths. And then we have those 2 additional resources, again, thank you to the board and our superintendent, for allowing us to get this year, one of which is the iExcel tool that allows students to practice specific skills. The teacher can go in, choose a standard, assign practice opportunities. Also, our director of data uploaded all student data into these systems so that it creates these personalized learning paths. And then we have Quizzes, where our teachers are able to create unique assessments specifically tailored to those essential and priority standards. All of these things are aligned to our data strategy steps 5 and 6 that Ms. Buxziger has gone over. And the most exciting part is that learning can continue after 4 o'clock. It does not have to stop in those 4 walls of Oak Park High School or Key Elementary. Students can access all of these tools for practice, 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 and parents can also see what their children are working on after 4 o'clock p.m. with these unique learning paths. So we are excited about that roadmap to success. We understand that all learning does not occur between 8:35 and 3:35. So we've given our students access to these tools that they can use beyond the school day. So the goal of Focus Priority 1 is to ensure that we are focusing all of our time, talent, and resources on the most important work of the grade, and that is what we teach in our guaranteed and viable curriculum. I'm going to try to go quickly. Focus Priority number 2, how we teach. So we are focused on a graduate release model of responsibility instructional framework. Many of you have heard of the I do, we do together, then you do it by yourself. They have updated that instructional framework to include more collaborative work time. How can students lean on and work with one another to acquire the necessary skills that they need? So staff were trained on this in the August PD by a few of our teacher leaders who designed that, and the Office of Teaching and Learning continues to support building leaders with implementing this model. And here's a picture of the model. It is an evidence-based teaching strategy that is proven to work. The whole goal of this model is to release more student responsibility throughout the lesson, which means that it is a greater likelihood that they can do these skills independently, which means they can apply those things during an assessment opportunity. So that's the whole goal of graduate release. So the goal of Focus Priority number 2 is that all Oak Park teachers will be using this model, and the real essence of it is that all students have access to a high-quality educational experience. Focus Priority number 3, our third frame, big bucket, is how we collaborate, and that is through high-performing teams. I won't read all that stuff, but just know we have layers of support. So the Office of Teaching and Learning meets weekly with our building leaders to support them. They meet weekly or bi-weekly with their instructional leadership teams to make sure they feel supported and know what to do. And then those teacher leaders in the building support their team members in their departments and grade levels. So we have a multi-layer systems of support to make sure that everybody feels that they can do exactly what it is we're asking them to do. Our whole goal around that is capacity building. We train, we give knowledge, skills, we coach, we support, and we develop. Focus priority number 4, the fourth big bucket is how we do business. It is around capturing kids' hearts. And just this quote here, if you have a child's heart, then you have their mind. We all know through this initiative through CKH, if a student feels loved and cared for, they are more likely to perform and do the things that you're asking them to do. So we appreciate our board and our superintendent for allowing us to have this initiative, K-12. We knew that it was elementary focused last year, but we are across the district implementing capturing kids' hearts. And so these are some of the outcomes, the lagging indicators. If we do these things well, we can expect increased student achievement, a decrease in discipline referrals, increased attendance, increased graduation, all of those things to ensure a mentally and emotionally well child, because we know that they will perform better and feel more loved and cared for. And we're almost done. Focus priority number 5, the next big bucket, the last big bucket, is how we lead. How do we build our leaders? How do we build their capacity in order to do the work that has to be done in the schoolhouses? So we really lean into these evidence-based practices around sustainable leader actions. There are 4 big rocks. Leaders develop a culture that's focused on results. How often do they look at their data and respond to it? Leaders develop a culture of collaboration. How do they use the people in their building to do the work and build collective responsibility? Leaders develop a culture of data-driven decision-making and problem-solving, and they use systems of continuous improvement. The whole goal of number 5 is to ensure that our building principals are performing at their best, and that is aligned to data strategy number 6. So in short, maybe not short, these are the 5 big buckets of our action plan. We know that our data looks really bleak, but we have, I believe, curated a path forward in the vision of our superintendent and our assistant superintendent in the Office of Teaching and Learning. Research shows if we focus on, there's a book called by Schmoker, it's called Focus. If you align all talent, time, and energy in a few things, those leading indicators, if we spend time here, then the lagging indicator of improved student achievement will come. So this is how we've decided to spend our time.
Thank you. Any questions or comments from members of the board? Trustee Hoyda, and I see we have some coming to my right. Let's start with Trustee Hoyda.
Okay. Thank you for such a well-designed and thorough presentation. I do have some questions. And Mr. Stevens, as you were standing there, I was thinking about the lime green T-shirt back in the high school days, and how and the movement that we saw there, and how can we replicate that here. You talked about the grid, right? The losing, I want to make sure I get the language right back on page 3. The 4 different types of organizations. And you described us as a learning organization because we have, because we understand, we have a high understanding of our antecedents, and therefore replication of past failures is unlikely. What evidence is there to support that we aren't replicating our past failures?
Great question. So the last 5 things that we talked about are those very intentional areas of focus, right? That have been proven if you're doing well, it leads you to improve student achievement outcome, right? And so the degree of intentionality that we put on looking at where we are inside of those areas and then putting those plans in place to ensure that certain things happen. So just a quick example is when Director Murphy talked about gradual release. So high quality Tier 1 instruction has some very basic components to it. As we looked at what our Tier 1 instruction looked like across the district, it was more hit or miss. It may look this way over here, and then it may look this way over here. So how can we systematize and ensure that across the district, regardless to what teacher, what school, what class, that they're receiving high-quality Tier 1 instruction? And that's what taking a framework like gradual release and putting it in place for the entire district guarantees. As long as you build in systems to monitor how well gradual release is actually happening inside the classroom. And again, that's what Principal Murphy referenced when she talked about those layers of support. So the district is monitoring what gradual release looks like in the classroom. The district is monitoring what type of systems they have in the building from the principal level, and then the principal also have what they're called their instructional leadership team to make sure that it's not a one-person process, so that you're getting more and more people involved. So that degree of intentionality around making it taking a systemic approach to ensure that those things are in place is what allows us to be very confident that past behaviors that did not lead to the desired outcomes are not being replicated.
But aren't those strategies pretty similar to the ones we saw in last year's presentation and the year before that and the year before that?
So I didn't do last year's presentation, so remember that.
I know that.
No, but let me say this. So if they were, one of the things that we highlighted very early when we talked about it was fidelity implementation. It's one thing to have a strategy, to identify a strategy and say, hey, this is what we're going to do. It's another thing to have a very clear and definitive process to make sure that that strategy is done exactly the way it was meant to be done in order to get the desired outcomes that are connected to it. And that's the part that's majorly different. It's us being able to identify those systems that we put in place for fidelity implementation of the strategy. Even something like iReady. We've had iReady for a while. But the question would simply be, we've had it, but how have we actually used it? And iReady gives you a pathway to success. However, I couldn't tell you before now that everybody was following that exact pathway to success.
So I'm jumping in, and I'm sorry. I just wanted to touch on the point, and I'm getting old, so I'll forget if I don't. Are you suggesting that we've had iReady all this time and people didn't know what they were doing with it?
Not at all. What I'm suggesting is that iReady has multiple components to it. So I can use one part of iReady. And so we were using iReady fairly well as a diagnostic assessment to give us a picture of where our students were starting from. And that's what Director Bugziger pointed out. We were real clear about the students who were in the lower tier and what we were doing to bring students from the lower tier to that next tier. However, we weren't using it as well as we could for those students who were in those middle tiers and those top tiers to move them up to proficiency. And that's why if you look at our data, you'll see clearly that we do a good job of moving kids from the bottom up to that next tier of partially proficient, but not from partially proficient up to proficient. So it's not that they didn't know what they were doing with it, but it's using it to its
I'll
capacity.
come back to you. I know you got more. Trustee Davis?
Yes, I have a few questions.
Get one, we'll just have to keep on.
Okay,
all right.
okay.
You got
One.
too? Yeah.
Oh,
Get
okay.
one, then I'm gonna keep hitting
Okay,
everybody till we
all
get,
right.
yeah. Unless y'all want me, cause he's got several. So if you want me to let him get all his in first, and then make my way around, I can do that, or I can let everybody get one in at a time. So I don't know how you want, you know.
You
if-
can stick, to me, you can stick with one person, because he might have the same question
Okay,
that I have.
let me do that then, carry on.
Okay.
Question we have.
So, you said that we do a good job of moving students from not proficient to partially proficient. And on page 8, we saw that there are 58 students who moved from not proficient to partially proficient.
Yeah.
And 53 students who moved from partially proficient to not proficient. In the entire district, 58 students. And I understand that's more than in any other category, but is that an indicator that we're doing a good job with that?
So let me rephrase it in this way. If we dig deeper into the data, and so the way the data looks inside of these different categories is, so say for example, if a student may start off 3 grade levels or more below, right? And that puts them in the red. So even if you move that student maybe a whole grade level and a half, that student will still remain in the red, right? So they won't make that jump up to partially proficient. So that's a better way to state it, is we do a good job of moving those lower kids at a more accelerated rate than we do in moving those kids who may be in the middle and accelerating their rate of growth.
Do we have evidence to support that? Do we have data that supports that?
Yes, yep.
Okay.
So we can give you a deeper data dive so you can see exactly what that looks like.
Because we've looked at that in the past
Yeah.
of how many students are 3 grades below, 2 grades below, 1 grade below, and that would give us a more complete
Yes.
picture.
Yes.
You also talked about the iReady, the iExcel, these new tools that we have. And the image that came to my mind when you were talking about that was going way back when the district first invested in buying smart boards. And so that was on page 36. The district first invested in buying smart boards, and I think it was 2 years later, our curriculum team went into classrooms and found way too many classrooms where the smart boards were in the classroom in the closet. So my question is, we have these tools, and I think, and I understand how they can be used and how we intend to use them. I want to know, are teachers using these tools, and how are we holding teachers accountable to using these tools?
Great question. And that's what Director Murphy was referencing when she was referencing those different systems and those layers. So at central office, we're monitoring, so we can actually log onto those tools as well, right? So we log onto those tools regularly to monitor the usage. Every Thursday, we meet with our principals, so we also require our principals to log on and monitor the usage. Every building have their own individual growth goals and their own individual plans. And these plans all have indicators connected to them to say this is going to be the evidence that, one, the strategy is being used with fidelity. And so when we talk about these different programs, that's a big part of the strategy, right? So you can't expect to get the desired outcomes if you don't use the tool the way the tool was designed to be used, right? For anybody who does carpentry, a hammer is a very powerful tool. However, the hammer is designed to be powerful when it's used with leverage. Meaning if I hold the hammer from the back and I use it like this, it creates a much greater force, right? If I take that hammer and I do what's called choking up on it, and I move closer up, and I still use the exact same motion, it doesn't have the same effect. And so what we're focusing heavily on is making sure that the tools are used the way the tools were designed to be used. So we monitor that at central office, and then we support the capacity building of our principals, and part of what we require them to do is to monitor the usage as well, building by building. And that's part of that whole systems approach that we put in place to make sure that these are being used and they are being monitored.
Usage by the students or usage by the teachers?
Well, the teachers are the ones who have to incorporate it into their daily plans to ensure that the students are using it the way it was meant to be used.
Yeah, because this is another part that I have trouble with. You know, when I see these numbers, and unfortunately it's become a bi-yearly presentation that we're seeing this, and it's painful, and having done this now 15 times, it doesn't get any less painful. And we talk about how this is not a reflection of our students, and it absolutely is not. Is it a reflection of what we're doing? And I say us as a board, our central office leadership, the people the adults who are professional, who are accountable to the voters, to the students, to the parents, to deliver, effective instruction. Are we holding ourselves accountable and responsible or are we talking about what the students need to do differently? And that's, even on page 40, when you talked about the gradual release model, and maybe I misunderstood this, but you talked about shifting teacher responsibility for learning to student responsibility for learning. And I really, like, that hit me in the chest when I heard that, because our teachers are being paid, and we pay them well. We don't pay them well enough, but we do pay them well to do this as a professional pursuit. Why would we want to shift responsibility away from them to the students who are children? That's something I feel like I'm fundamentally missing.
Yeah. So the reason that this strategy is a top instructional strategy is to move the locus of control, right? It's just like teaching a child how to ride a bike. When you first teach them how to ride the bike, you're holding the seat, you're helping them steer the handlebars, and then you release them and then you grab them. You release them and then you grab them. But what's the intended result of all of that work? Is so that the child can ride the bike on their own. And so when we talk about release and responsibility, it's really such that students own their learning. It's not a teacher, it's not the Ferris Bueller at the board. Anybody? That's not the goal of our education. It is, can a child take the learning that the teacher has given them, with the tools the teacher has taught them, and apply their learning independently? Because at the end of the day, when they fill out that M-STEP score, they fill out that M-STEP test, it is their name, student ID number on the assessment, right? So it's really just curating experiences for them to feel the most comfortable with being able to independently perform a task after the teaching has been done. So it is still the onus, right? Our office is called Teaching and Learning, right? It is instruction before anything else. But what I'm really doing is helping you to ride that bike independently of me. Because at the end of the day, they have to function as productive citizens in society. They have to learn how to navigate and apply the skills that we are teaching them. And so the onus of creating and curating those experiences is on the teacher, right? We're designing a lesson such that I own it, then I'm sharing the ownership with you, then you share the ownership with one another, then you can independently know how to solve two-step equations.
And we didn't go deep into the model. So if you look at the model, and if you look at the design of the model clearly states what is the teacher doing during this time, and what is the student doing during this time. And what gradual release actually does, in conjunction with Director Murphy just shared with us, it creates a student who can self-advocate, right? And so we'll be doing our focus groups inside of the building. And when I say self-advocate, this is what I mean. Students come into the lesson very clearly understanding what is it that I'm supposed to get out of this lesson today. When this lesson has ended, how will I be able to assess as to whether or not I was successful in this lesson today? Not only should they be able to articulate that, they should also be able to articulate the pathway that was designed for them to travel to get to that place of success. And in that, they should be able to identify which things worked for them and which things did not work for them. So as we talk to students and we have our focus questions, those are the things that are on there. So are your teachers using learning targets and success criteria? Are your teachers requiring you to assess yourself before you actually leave the class? Are you able to explain or articulate what things are working for you and what things are not working for you? And that's what gradual release means when it says it gradually releases the responsibility of learning to the student. You're creating students who can self-advocate. When I have conversations with my own daughter, that's how I talk to her, right? I ask her, what did you learn today? How are you assessing your own learning? Which things are working, which things are not working? So that you can talk to your teacher and you can say, hey, this is where I actually need some extra support.
So focus groups. If I'm understanding correctly, what the focus groups are doing is we're finding students who, let's say, are right below one of those proficiency targets, and we're focusing on them so that they can go a little bit, so that with relatively slight improvement, they're now going to be in a different category, which will change how it shows up in our numbers. Is that a data strategy, meaning it's going to make our data look better, or is that a learning strategy that effectively helps students learn? And my other question about that is, because when I heard focus groups, what came to my mind is, oh, okay, great. We're going to sit with a group of students and listen to them, because that, right, in other contexts, that's what a
Right,
focus
right.
group means. And we're going to understand more about, hey, what are we missing? What's not working for you? What can we do better? Are we doing any of that in terms of focus grouping?
And that was the last piece I just described. You know, we'll be going from school to school for those focus groups to ask those specific questions around those specific things that we would expect to be happening inside of the building. And so talking to the students, looking at the students, that's your real data, right? To let you know what's actually happening. Because if it's happening a certain way, it should show up inside of the students. We should expect them to answer a certain way. Your first question. Your question was either or, right? And so it's actually an and, right? It's an and. So yes, it's going to have us show an increase in our overall score, but what it really goes to is equity, right? And equity simply meaning that every particular student, every particular group is getting what they need, as opposed to teaching to the middle type philosophy or teaching specifically to a different group, right? So what this is saying is that, hey, you have a group right here too. What are you specifically or intentionally doing with this group so that they accelerate as well, right? As opposed to just with this group for intervention to move them closer to, right? So it's really an equity approach to make sure that you're intentional about ensuring that each group is exactly what they need for it to happen, as opposed to just a whole group approach.
I do.
Go for it.
And actually, I don't think I understood that. How is focusing on moving, how is that an equity strategy?
Because in the past, we didn't have anything specifically tailored for that group of students, right? So we still have students who get double dosing, we still have students who get the other interventions, but this is something specifically for that group that didn't exist, right? That group, you could say, was almost the ignored group because they were the group that was already closest to, as it pertained to doing something specifically for them.
I mean, we've been hearing that strategy for years, that we're gonna, so and again, I don't know whether that's being implemented, but that is what has been presented to us as the strategy for a long time, that we're gonna find those students that are a few points below proficiency and move them up so that our data, yeah.
So let me just lift this to you since you started, right? This is very much connected to those things that we did the last time the state was here and I was here, that actually moved us from where we were to move out of state receivership, to move from being a red school to a lime green school. The major difference whenever you do any of this work really is, and I know it sounds simple and cliche, but it really is fidelity implementation and what type of system do you build for the actual monitoring to make sure that these things are actually happening. So a lot of this doesn't change, right? A lot of it doesn't change because it really is good practices. But the question is, to what degree are they actually happening? And that's what we're offering up as a difference.
But that actually gets at the original question, which is, are we replicating our past failures, right? If we're coming back and saying we're gonna do it with the same strategy that we've been saying we're gonna do for a long time, but this time we're gonna do it with more fidelity, like we've said we're gonna do it with more fidelity, are we missing what are actually the antecedents, which is going to put us not in a learning part of that grid, but in a different part of that grid?
So what we've identified as the antecedents is a lack of consistency, right? So like I said, you may see something in one place and not see it in another place. So how do you systemically make sure that you see best practices happening across the board? What we've notified as an adult antecedent that's contributing to our student achievement outcomes is to what degree are these things happening the way that they really should happen.
So we have our MyKIP goals. Those are on page 5, which were set a number of years back, that by 2025, 10% of all 3 to 12 students attending Oak Park schools will be proficient in math, and 28% will be proficient in reading. and we're clearly well behind the trajectory we need to be on to meet those goals. We also saw at the end, you set a goal that by June of 2026, 50% of students will be at grade level or on trajectory to meet grade level. So what I want to know is, first of all, what happens if we don't meet those MyKIP goals by 2025? And when we talk about 2026, what does on trajectory to meet that? What does that mean?
So if we don't meet the goals, which, as you stated, there's quite a difference between the 3% where we are and the 10% where we need to be, we will be creating our own action plans with steps in between. And part of what we're doing right now, or most of what we're doing right now, would be in place. If we don't meet this, then we do this. So we're getting ahead of the next step action plans. So as far as the MyKIP goals go, we go in and it's a living document. A school improvement plan is a living document. So knowing that we set those goals prior to us being in teaching and learning, prior to us presenting, we will be reestablishing the goals on real-time data and real-time strategies that we have.
I heard your question. We will be working on action plans. When do we get this data?
This data,
Yeah.
it was released in the end of August, early August, released public, end of August.
And to clarify, if in 2025 we don't meet the MyKIP goal, then we will have to create an action plan for the state. And that's what you're talking about. Okay.
But these are our proactive measures.
Yeah.
Prior to.
Prior to that. I'm almost done, believe it or not. On page 32, you listed the reasons that you see for why we're seeing these results. Are these based on data? Like, do we have data that points to these being the causes, or are these observations that we're making? You know, that let's say there was high turnover of staff. That's a contributor to this data, or do we actually have data that points to that, to those different potential causes of academic decline?
So both. We know that high turnover with teachers impacts student achievement. We had a high turnover, and we can look specifically at certain classes to see what happened in this class. They had a sub. We also put the data together that we can track students from every year that they've been with us, so that way we know that in 3rd grade they were proficient, 4th grade they were proficient, 5th grade they went to not proficient. What happened? Drilling down to, there wasn't a teacher in that room, right? So we can drill down to each one. So we have both data and observation for that. Poor testing environment, that's both observation and data. You can walk through the buildings on testing days and say, this is a great environment, this one needs work. So collecting how many rooms within a building, in a perfect situation, how many of them needed support.
Do we see that the ones where there was a better environment are doing better, and the ones that are not doing as well?
We see less irregularities, less reasons for irregularities.
And my last question is, we collect a lot of, this is one data set. We collect a lot of data throughout the year. Did we have indicators that pointed to these results, or are these inconsistent with the other data that we're getting on our student learning?
They're really consistent. When you look at our iReady scores, 3 times a year, they're pretty spot on to how we performed on the state assessments. We do see that there's bigger increases in iReady. We see some hopeful times, but part of our data dive that we had this summer was looking at, just because they're green on iReady, just because they say mid or at level, doesn't mean that their scale score correlates with proficiency. So part of the work that we've done has been finding what is the scale score that would be true to proficiency, and that would be that focus area. Because we have a lot of students on green, 30 students on green, but only 5 of them are scoring proficient. So what is happening, and what are those skill sets? So it's really drilling into that specific data.
So those are all my questions. I just want to finish with a statement that I think what would be helpful for us is, uh, if we're getting that data throughout the year, and we see where this is going, and I know the data, this data comes out once a year, and then it's embargoed for a couple of months, but for us as a board to be proactively involved in how that's going throughout the year, not just when this data gets released by the state, but what we know about, because I'll be honest, from my perspective, I care less about state data than I do about knowing that our kids are getting the education that our community is paying for. And that's what we really on a proactive level to say, we've tried this strategy, it's working better than we thought it was, or it's not working as well as we thought it was. Here are the shifts that we're making. Because otherwise we come back here once a year or twice a year and we see the same thing, and that feels frustrating for us, or for me. Again, I'm only going to speak for myself. Thank you. Thank you to my colleagues for your patience, your indulgence.
Yeah, so I'm an advocate, and I'm a fan. I'm a fan of the teachers. I'm a fan of the action plans that we put in progress from where we went to where we're trying to go, and to try to address these scenarios or the outputs of where we're at. A lot of data mining. Thank you for the data, and it says a lot. However, me being an advocate about parental involvement, that's one of my biggest things, because right here you have the gradual release model with a shared responsibility amongst the student and the teachers. But what I don't see is where the parents responsible in this, because yes, they drop you off, they drop students off. I've done it myself, just drop the student off at 8:30, they finish what, 3:30, 4 o'clock. Excuse me if I'm wrong on that time. But what happens after that? You know what I mean? What happens after that? Where are the checks and balances from the parents to say, hey, teacher does it, student and teacher does it, you do it, I understand it, sign off by parents. With that, I do. I'm not gonna sit here and lie to anybody and say I don't hold parents responsible, because when we sit up here and we have the student of the months, and we see big turnouts and the families and so forth, and we know there's some support systems there. Can I say that all the students have that support system? I don't know that, but on a day-to-day basis, you deal with them, and what are you receiving? What are you getting from the parents? I hold parents, because you just said it, how you talk to your child. I know each one of you here talk to your child or your family member. I definitely talk to my son, and his boss, I can attest to that, But, I don't want to say the numbers of how they're reflecting are all solely on teachers and the understanding between teacher and children. Are they understanding? We need sign off somewhere from parents, and I'm holding parents accountable. So I just want to say good job, looking forward to where we're going to go, and just hope that some more support mechanisms are in place after school to try to drive these numbers up. That's it.
One of the things that we are implementing, and it came from our superintendent, is making sure we're sending out a mass email to all parents with their students' latest iReady or NWA score, along with their login information of how they can access these tools beyond the school day, and making sure that every parent gets access to that, because knowledge is power, but it's also powerful when you do something with it, right? So then monitoring, and there's a way I think we can turn on the system of monitoring the after-school usage of these programs as well, to see where we're getting a little bit more usage, where can we bump it up, how can we inform our parents more and invite them into the conversation and share responsibility for student achievement.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you for this presentation. And I'm not going to say painful, but the data is concerning. And I had a question, and I'm going to piggyback on what Trustee Smith I want a little more specific, response, what steps are being taken to engage parents and guardians in supporting their children's academic progress? Especially I see there, on this one slide, it says there's student access and practice beyond 4. So what steps are being taken? How can we make sure that parents are engaged? And is there a way to incentivize this some type of way? So that's one question that I have.
I'll start this and then probably tag team the answer on that. So we've been working on how to upload and make sure it is user-friendly for parents, because that's one of our bigger issues, is that our system might not be user-friendly. And Smurfy and I talked about today how even with our children, when we log into our children's accounts, it's hard to find a parent log in and get into their actual system and see everything a student can. So we have been working on better access through Clever and through the parent portal. With our programs, we can pull reports to see if they logged in with a parent, if they logged in on their own. And then something that I'm not going to say is new, but more enhanced, is the data chats the expectation of the data chats that we have with our students, so teacher to student, parent to student, teacher to parent. Making sure that when we have our conferences, whether they're on the phone or calling for whatever reason, or face-to-face, that they have a printout of what they're talking about, so that they know that it's not just a score. You didn't just get a 220. 220 means that you're norming at a 5th grade, but the student's in 9th grade. So having much more meaningful conversations and making sure that we're holding those parents more accountable for those conversations, calling them, making sure that we don't just call them on, we have a behavioral problem, but we call them and make sure that we're conferencing with them along the way, celebrating those moments of growth, and then also some areas of concern that we need to really amp up on, and here's the access that you need, here's the expectation, please make sure you're following up and helping us grow your students.
And just to add 2 more things to that, each school is responsible for hosting a monthly Title I parent night, right? We're a Title I school district. So a lot of our buildings, and we'll make sure to monitor this piece of fidelity, also of implementation, how are parents being equipped with the knowledge and skill of how to access these things at the house, right? Those are ways in which we can use those opportunities through the monthly Title I parent meetings to give out logins, to walk them through how to find it on Clever, or how to log in, or how to find their child's Google login information. So that's one way. Additionally, our principals send out weekly newsletters each week, right? And so one of the ways that we perhaps can celebrate, or even cause, okay, pay attention, is to highlight the percentage of usage across the schoolhouse. Hey parents, we have access to this tool. Here's our percentage as a schoolhouse of how we're leveraging this tool to support our students. So those are just a number of ways that we can improve parental access, parental knowledge and information, and invite them into the action planning conversation.
Thank you. And I want to go back to the data reflection, I think it was slide 32. Because my question when the presentation first started was what accounted for the decline 23 to 24. So are those the main things that we feel accounted for the decline? Are there any other external causes?
So there are other external causes, but without concrete data that we've observed and been able to present it, then it would just be like our observations
Okay.
and what's on that. We can look at, other people's studies, best practices of what happens, what if, and we know that there are a lot of other factors, but looking at our specific groups of students, these are the factors that would contribute.
Okay. So can you expand a little bit more about what is a poor testing environment and what is going to be different?
So a poor testing environment would be students talking in the middle of the test. They're on a computer. When that test is done, the computer should be closed. Maybe a student is doing something quietly at their desk, reading a book, doing something, rather than having a game on their computer. So the student who's next to them still doing their test look over and they see a game happening, whether it's an educational game, but it's still a game, and it could then push that student to just hurry up because they want to play that. Quiet conversations. When the test's over, that needs to be a silent room until the last person is testing. So that would be moving on when they're still working. Poor testing environment would be a technology issue, which we really don't have too many of. The system going down or people not having username and passwords. But most of the time, what I observe for the poor testing environment is a lot of external talking within the classroom and then not having a procedure at the end of the testing to make sure that it stays in a very quiet environment where all students can focus. So next step for that, doing that is streamlining and making sure that we have the same process and expectation in all of the buildings. This year for fall testing, we had Einstein do, well, we gave them some options of what we want to see. Ultimately, it was either all school testing at the same time or grade bands testing at the same time, so that way when we go in to do the observation, we'll see what's happening in each classroom. Einstein did a really great job of all school testing. On Tuesday, everyone, K-5 took the test. You walked into the building was pretty much silent. You walked into the classrooms and you knew all of the students were testing at one time. So we did see like an increase of that testing environment as almost a model of what we want to see in all of the buildings. But really just setting up an exemplar and making sure that not only the testing coordinators and the building leaders know, but they can see it in other places.
Thank you. Just two more. And you may have said this, but if you can just reiterate, what specific interventions are currently in place to address areas where students are underperforming? How are we measuring this effectiveness? And I think related to that, you mentioned that we're tracking the personalized learning plan. So who is responsible for that? So a little more details on those specific interventions.
When they take the assessment, when they take iReady or NWA Math, we upload their scores into the platform. And then each student gets a customized learning plan. That teacher also gets notified of the learning plan. So when the teacher logs in, they'll have a side screen that will say like my classroom with all of the plans. It is their responsibility to monitor, because it's already assigned for them. But they also have another responsibility of looking at students' data, and if they're flying through that work and they're doing well, then they're increasing the rigor, they're adding more lessons to it and monitoring. If they're doing poorly, then that's where they do reteach. That's when they have the one-on-ones and small group interventions for them. So it is the teacher's initial responsibility, but it's also the building leader's responsibility to make sure that the teacher is monitoring and that the students are going, and then it's our responsibility in teaching and learning when we meet with the principals and they bring us the data and we confirm their data. We pull up our screens and make sure that they know what they're looking for and that they have the support if they have to get into the classroom to talk with the teacher, so that way they understand what the process is for those platforms.
And I'm glad you mentioned teacher support, because that's my last question. That's my last question. How are teachers and staff being supported and equipped to address the needs of those that are struggling?
Absolutely. So through that multi-tiered level of support that we've designed, the Office of Teaching and Learning supports our building leaders through our weekly leadership meetings and one-on-ones. We do individual one-on-one coaching conversations with our principals each week. And then we also meet with what we call our cows and gals, our grade area leaders and our content area leaders, to build capacity in the staff. Those are our department chairs, right? Our old school department chairs, our math leader, our 5th grade team leader at Key, our 1st grade team leader at Einstein. We meet with them once a month, sometimes more, to build their capacity. Do they understand what we're asking them to do? Do we have to model something? Do we have to show a video? Do we have to read over something to get a greater understanding? And we allow them to ask questions. Well, Shayna, how do I plan a model using graduate release? Can I get all 4 parts in one lesson? How can I design better group work? How can I get feedback more effectively during when it's student work time? So we build their capacity in those cows and gals meeting with the idea that also they sit on the instructional leadership team of their schoolhouses, right? And the whole idea, right, it's only 3 of us and it's 7 building leaders, right? But it's the more people we invite to the work with the understanding and conversation, building their support, those tentacles kind of go out, right? Everybody is moving in the same direction and getting the support, and they feel supported, right? We're all in this together, right? We we monitor things up here, but we're a team, right? So we're only as great as our weakest link. So we make sure that we're supporting our building leaders, supporting their teachers and IOTs, and we go in the buildings. We meet with teacher teams. We have after-school meetings over at Nova to have those collaborative conversations and to build their capacity. The principals call us all the time. Can you come meet with the third grade team to show them again how to write a graduate list? Can you, Mr. Stevens spent all day one day at OPA doing the math team meeting and an ELA team meeting to again show them exactly what we need and they feel supported.
Okay, and just to Menachem's statement, Trustee Menachem, we're here to support. So if there's something we can do in the interim, please let us know, because it's very concerning to come and get these reports and they're not where they need to be. So let us know how we can support everyone in their role so we can get these scores better.
Thank you, Trustee Davis. Trustee Corbin.
Ooh. Well, I did have about 10 questions. Maybe 5 of those 10 were answered. But what I didn't hear is how is the title funds being used to or for potential engagement, and what title funds are used like for the activities and so forth?
So, as far as title funds, a lot of our programs are intervention programs that are using title funds. Making sure that we are targeting our students, our lowest performing students. So, like within the buildings, each building have their own set of title funds. So at the high school, they purchase Uzella, which is an intervention tool with Title I funds. At the middle school, they purchase several reading programs, resources, classroom materials. So the title funds are spread out throughout the buildings, and the resources to target those specific students are used. And then what happens is they send it to me to write it into a title fund, and then Ms. Murphy and I work together to make sure it's in alignment with our district goals. And then once we're all set, then we send it over to Mr. Abdulhad for approval, and then we submit the Title I grant to make sure that we're all in line with all of our district goals, which are our mindful goals.
Continue.
Thank you. Also, they touched, the board members touched on about the after 4 o'clock. But I did not hear how are the students able to, or what instrument they have to go on to, study or, what's the word I'm looking for? They're not able, are they able, to get on to practice? That's the word I'm looking for. Are we, giving Chromebooks or anything for them that don't have, the right instrument at home to practice with?
We do not give out one-to-one Chromebooks right now. All of the resources that we have can be accessed from their phones, their computers. A lot of times we have tutoring. I've not started tutoring yet, but there's tutoring after school where they can use those resources. For our homebound students, they do have their Chromebooks. And then when parents do express concern, we try to address those concerns one by one.
Thank you. What roles do the principal play in ensuring the teachers are using the curriculum in the correct manner?
So that's all a part of our monitoring systems with the principals. We have several protocols we use with them every Thursday where they have to bring their data. And in fact, we now have a new walkthrough tool that our principals have been trained up on. So when they enter into a classroom, here are the things they're looking for in relationship to the graduate release model, capture kids' hearts. Are teachers greeting kids? Do they know their names? Have they stated the learning target for the day? Are they giving kids feedback during the lesson? All of those things are outlined in a walkthrough tool that helps us collect information. Are they going in there to look for it? And then in what ways can we provide support? If we notice a trend across our teacher teams or buildings that somebody's really weak or really good in a certain section, that we can offer levels of support, right? So if a particular team is struggling with, how to deliver an effective learning target, which is when you communicate to the student exactly what they have to know and understand by the end of the lesson, on how they got to show that they understand it. If we notice a trend, then we know we got to deploy ourselves to go be a level of support, right? We might have to go do an after-school meeting. We might have to offer some professional development to make sure that we're all in one accord. So the principals, they have to bring data every Thursday, right, related to our goals, iReady usage, iReady monitoring, walk through data with capturing kids' hearts and graduate release of responsibility.
Thank you. My last question is, of course, we're talking about goals. What if these goals are not met in that time that, we're trying to achieve? But what if those goals are not met? Do we just, what are we gonna do? I'm thinking we're gonna start all over, because
For clarification,
it
you're
looks
saying
pretty close.
the MyKip goals or the goals that we have as far as the implementation of the platforms, the monitoring of lessons? Or all of them?
All those goals, yeah, because all these goals, in my eye, it's based on, our taking up and our, I'm sorry, I got other things on my mind that I'm just trying to stay focused so we can get it through. But the goals that I'm thinking about, are the goals that we're trying to achieve, by all of the material we have to set those goals that you guys are setting for us.
So, school improvement plans are living documents. If we don't meet those goals, we do a program evaluation. And we see how well we're doing and what changes we need to make. And that's not a standalone conversation. That's a conversation with leaders, teachers, community members, because we really want to make sure we're putting our hands, grabbing our hands around all the things. So if we're looking at our MyKip goals specifically, and we're not hitting those targets by 25, then we meet as a team and we reestablish what those goals will be. If we're looking at implementation of the platforms and we see that only half of the teachers are utilizing iExcel, then we have those conversations with the building leaders, going down to the teachers, and we provide additional support. What are we missing, and how do we continue to provide support so that way they can implement it? When it comes down to the graduate release lesson plan, where Ms. Murphy is meeting with the principals and doing walkthroughs and using the observation tools. So if we're inspecting what we're expecting, and we're having the meetings, it's not a start over. We're not starting from scratch, because that's a big start over. This is just a continuous rebuilding, continuous monitoring and implementing different plans to make sure that we're providing those layers of support and we're yielding the results that we're looking for.
And to the board's point, for what you guys said, hey, can we have something along the way, right? As opposed to just this one time a year thing. So what we will provide to you along the way will be those PDQs, right? So hopefully what we've done is set a really good roadmap where we look at those indicators that they need to go back and right? So if we monitor this throughout the way, those 5 buckets that we identified, those things that we're speaking into now, that's what we're monitoring along the way. So it's a good thing. If we're doing this extremely well and it looks this way, then here's what we're expecting to come as a result of it, right? So we should have a real good picture along the way as to whether or not we're moving towards actually hitting our goal.
Thank you. Trustee Madison.
Okay, I just wanted to say, it's kind of piggybacking off of what Trustee Davis said. Our teachers being supported. So, I had a real uncomfortable conversation with one of the teachers on parent-teacher conference, but it's still bothering me till right now. They're not being supported. They need things. They need supplies. They need a bunch of things. Maybe they don't feel like they can go to their principals. Y'all just said they got to go through this person and this person and this person and this person. What is the issue? Like, why can't they just get what they need for the kids? Because that's clearly a factor. Because now that I'm hearing the data and then going back to that conversation, it's adding up. So I just need to, because that's why I'm here, for the kids and for their staff. At the end of the day, strictly for them. So we need to make sure that they're being supported. Not just what lesson plan do you need and all that. They need supplies for these kids. Or how they gonna learn? You know? How are they gonna learn? You got Chromebooks in the classrooms, no headphones. You got notebooks. These parents these days not providing their children with notebooks every 3 weeks, because you run through a notebook fast, right? So that's my question. How are they being supported, and can they be supported more, and can they get these supplies that they need for the kids?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh.
So it's always our goal to make sure that every teacher has everything they need. It helps us if we know specifically what they're asking for, like those specific examples that you just gave, as it pertains to if they need headphones, if they need notebooks. We just need to know exactly what they need, and then we can look at making sure that we go about using our resources to make sure that they actually get it.
And do they have to wait like weeks and weeks and weeks? Like they needed this stuff like yesterday.
So
And I have a list too.
okay. So you can share that with us, and then we
Sure.
can look at what we can do to make sure that they get what they need.
Thank you.
No, definitely.
You, no? Okay.
Sure, no, I'll.
You got some too?
Very briefly.
Go forth and conquer.
To echo what Trustee Madison is saying, my perspective is more of the special needs area. So specifically with Pepper, we'll say for example, Pepper doesn't have a sensory room. The other schools do. And we know that Pepper doesn't have the space for a sensory room. So where can we go for those teachers that need that sensory output? For example, a trampoline or a swing or such and such. Who do we ask? Is my question. That's an actual question.
Yeah. We hear your question. What we can do is work with the building leader, and perhaps there may be small spaces in the schoolhouse or even inside of the classroom. Can we redesign or give some new flexible furniture, or rebuy the specific classrooms in order to accommodate a sensory area, a wall, a rock wall, a tent with some fuzzy squish balls in it, some padded flooring that they can sit on. We can work with those teachers in particular and that building leader, along with our operations department to perhaps think about the outlay of the classroom a little bit differently. And in what ways can we utilize flexible furniture, things on the wall, small spaces in order to accommodate our children who really need that during their day.
And forgive me if this question has already been answered. I know that we do early release every third Wednesday. Is that helping? Has that been a productive aid to the teachers to be able to speak their concerns and trying to get where they need to be to, help as far as what we're seeing?
We believe so, but we can collect more street data, as Ms. Bugzeiger alluded to, and just ask them more questions about what their specific needs are, absolutely in relation to what Trustee Madison is saying. Do they feel supported, right? Because it's one thing to say, to have a perception that we are supported. It's another thing to collect data and information that they actually feel supported, right? So we'll collect more street data, we'll design another survey, and have those personal conversations. We love listening tours. We love going to visit schoolhouses. You could probably ask them every day they see one of us in a schoolhouse, right? They could flag us down, send us an email. They have most of our phone numbers, but we'll make sure we have those greater in-person conversations. Hey, how's it going? What do you need? How are your kids today? Do they have what they need to be successful when we visit those schoolhouses and get more concrete street level data, as they call it.
Thank you. Good. So in my eyes, it sounds like we do a lot at the top. And we filter some of that down to the next level at the top. I have concerns it's not reaching the end user. The end user being the children. I have tremendous concern. You're busting your chops. I see it. You're doing all you can at the top. I have concerns that it's just not getting to where it needs to go. And that's, problematic, that being the case. And I don't know where one school from one classroom, it could be one thing to the next. But I just have concerns that it's not getting to where it needs to go. And you're the experts, I don't know how we get there. You can see that you put a lot of work into the presentation. Clearly, there was a lot of thought behind it. We can, we've allocated money, so we know that you've used it. But it just seems to me that there's a disconnect somewhere, and I don't know where that is. So hopefully we can figure out where that disconnect is. This is more of a statement than a question. But hopefully we can figure out where that disconnect is. Maybe the teachers don't know how to use the things that you put in front of them. Maybe the fact that kids don't have Chromebooks at home is impacting their ability to do things at home. Maybe it's parents not able to work with their kids at home. You mentioned that there are Title I nights. How many parents actually attend Title I night? I'm gonna go on a limb here and guess less than 10%. That's my guess. I could be wrong. I've been known to be wrong, but I'm gonna go on a limb and say it's not very many. So maybe we need to do Title I night differently. I don't know. How are we giving individualized instruction to the ones who need it? Don't know, right? Do we have enough resources to, Title I folks to make that happen? I don't want an answer because I don't want to know. I've never asked a question that either that I don't already know the answer to or that I don't want to know the answer to, right? And so, but those are the things where I think, believe me, I'm not the expert here, where it seems like there's some disconnect. You mentioned parents getting emailed a newsletter, right? That's one of the things you mentioned. What do our statistics say about how many of those get opened? Can we see that? Do we know that? Right? And so and just because they opened it doesn't mean they read it. Right? And so, I'm not, again, I taught for 5.5 years and I knew that was enough for me. However, I spent a lot of time calling parents daily, homework not in, such and such is going on, or starting to see more homework turned in, starting to see better production. How much are we utilizing the phones because the emails may not be the best tool for communication, and it takes more time. So, people might say, I don't feel like doing it. But those are the things that are running through my mind when I look at this, and I do so appreciate, at the very least, us not sugarcoating the results. If you recall, I felt like we did that in the past and it was insulting. So, but we all care and we all want to see, these scores go up. And if I had the answer, Lord knows, I'll give you the magical elixir. I don't have it. But those are the things that run through my mind when I look at the data. So, if nothing else from the rest of the board, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
All right, where are we? I had a whole pack of Skittles, thank you very much. All right, we're going to reports. We have one. Superintendent Doolad.
So, in the spirit
Yep.
of that, I'll turn it over back to you.
Thank you. Now we're going to go to item number 7, public participation. Public participation is one-way communication in which members of the public are asked to address the full board with the understanding that board members will not be able to respond. Trustee Davis, please provide the public comment guidelines.
Because the Oak Park Board of Education values public meetings, not just meetings in public, we welcome public comment on school issues. Speakers are asked to express themselves in a civil manner with due process for the dignity and privacy of others who may be affected by public comments. The public comment portion of the meeting cannot be used to make personal attacks against the school board member or school district employee that disrupts the meeting disrupts the order of the meeting and totally unrelated to the manner in which the member or employee performs his or her duties. Speakers should be aware that if statements violate the rights of others under the law of defamation or invasion of privacy, such comments may result in legal liability. Most comments can be concisely stated in 3 minutes, and the board respectfully asks that comments remain focused on the topic or issue and not be directed at specific personnel or board members. I do not have any public comment cards at this time.
Thank you. Any members of the public who wish to address the board? Going once? Twice? Okay, no go. All right, we'll go to action, we'll go to item 8A, action items, acceptance of custodial maintenance RFP response. Trustee Hoyter, you have it up?
I do.
You want to read it?
Resolved that the Oak Park Board of Education hereby approves the recommendation of the administration to enter into a contract agreement with DM Burr for custodial and maintenance services for a total amount of $1,266,851 commencing on December 1st, 2024 and concluding on June 30, 2027 as proposed by the administration at the board meeting on October 14th, 2024.
Motion made by Trustee Hoyt. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Trustee Smith. Is there any discussion on the motion? Trustee Hoyt.
Just to clarify in the motion, that amount that was listed, is that the amount for year one? Okay, and so then we're also approving, I want to make sure we get that on the record, that was the amount for year one, the amount for years 2 and 3.
So shouldn't this amount be the full amount of the contract and not just year one, or are you gonna come back every year and ask for additional allocation?
It's supposed to be the 5 million. Did you also?
So what's the real number?
What you gave me is what I did.
What's the real number?
5,642,751.
What?
I see 5,642,751.
700 and
751.
any change?
No change listed.
Okay, so can we amend that to say $5,642,751? Can we amend it to say that?
Yes.
I mean, is the board okay with that change?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, all right. So we'll amend it for the full amount. Trustee Hoyt, anything else?
Yeah, I want to thank the administration for providing us with additional information today, which was very helpful. And I know that, I see that DM Burr is here. Can we?
Is there something specific you want to ask them?
The superintendent emailed us information this afternoon.
Is there specific you want to ask them?
I wanted to ask DM Burr if I could, and glad you're here. I know that we've worked with you in the past. Obviously, we worked with you on security for a long time. We've worked with you in the past on custodial, and the last time we did not find that it was satisfactory to our expectations. What is different about this contract from the last experience?
Well, thank you. That's a great question. I would say first off, this is part of it is different because we do not have grounds. I'm sorry,
No, can you continue? Go,
I'm
sorry.
sorry, I thought you were saying stop. So we don't have grounds in this part. I think that was one of our areas where we lacked and weren't as good. I thought we had done some good things in the custodial during the summer that we were here. We know that one of our lacking things was training, so we have included a full-time trainer at our cost, no cost to the district. They're gonna be here 5 days a week, every week, just working on making sure that our employees are thoroughly trained. Plus, we also added an additional high school supervisor that's gonna be working on second shift, just to oversee that building, because that building is pretty much nonstop. You guys have activities there all the time.
More?
One other thing I'd like to add too is, we all know that in this economy that staffing challenges come up regularly. And one thing we've tried to implement to assist with this contract is we're gonna provide 2 additional full-time floaters that will show up every day. So if someone's absent or on vacation or sick or whatnot, those people will be there regardless. And if it's fully staffed, they'll help up and just pick up some extra work. So we have a plan to have 2 additional staff members come on a daily basis at no charge to the district.
Thank you.
So I do have a question.
Yes, sir.
It sounds like you guys are willing to go the extra mile here moving forward. My question is, how come we didn't get that in the last situation? Like, why are we getting that now? How come we weren't doing this before? It's no secret that we've seen subpar service. So what's the issue that we're able to get these items now? We weren't getting them before.
Well, I think kind of Mr. Stevens kind of alluded to a little bit about a learning company. That's kind of what we've been. And we don't sit on our laurels. We don't just rest on what we've done in the past. We learn from mistakes and try to implement changes to be better. And also, I think you have to take into consideration also, when we took this contract on initially in 2019, the economy was a lot different, right? And then COVID hit in 2020. There was a lot of challenges that hit us, right? And we adapted and we tried to do the best we could. Were there challenges? Absolutely. Are we putting things in place to address those? We are doing that. We want to be invested in your community. We want to make sure that we're part of this organization. We've been in business doing these services for over 26 years. And for over almost a third of that time, we've been a partnership with Oak Park Schools. And we're looking forward to the opportunity to strengthen that partnership.
All right. I would say to this that, I know there's been some consternation around this, particularly because of the performance that we received in the past. Would ask that the administration give us some regular reporting of how this is going. I have already read the termination clause. I see what's necessary. We don't have to go through a lot if we're not comfortable with where this is going. Let's not mess around with it. Let's pivot and move forward. Okay, so given all the new things that it says we'll receive, hopefully things will pick up. If not, then we'll do what we need to do. But I would ask at least on a quarterly basis that we get to understand what's going on with this contract.
And this is not something that we take lightly. We understand the opportunity to come back and work with you again is something that we were looking forward to. And we're going to definitely throw our best foot forward to be successful with you guys.
Trustee Corcoran? Nothing? Anyone else? Ms. Greer, please call the roll.
Medicine,
Yes.
Clark,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
Elvin,
Yes.
Davis,
Yes.
Corcoran,
No.
and Hoda.
Yes.
Okay, the motion passes. We will go to item 8B. And Trustee Clark, do you have that up? Thank you.
Resolved that the Oak Park Board of Education accepts the administration's recommendation to purchase the Evolve security system from Technology. My brain is fried, I'm sorry. From Technology Install Partners for Oak Park Preparatory Academy. The total cost will not exceed $110,905. This purchase will be funded by grants and general funds.
Motion made by Trustee Clark. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Trustee Davis. Are any questions on this motion?
I have a question. What day will this be implementing at the school?
Well, we have to order it, and I don't, short answer, I don't have an actual date, but I'll get you one and I'll put it on.
Yeah, I was just wondering how long it would take, that's all.
Sure.
From the time we passed.
Yeah.
Anyone else? Ms. Greer, please call the roll.
Elvin,
Yes.
Clark,
Yes.
Hoda,
Yes.
Medicine,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
Davis,
Yes.
and Corcoran.
Yes.
Motion passes. Item 8C, adopt change schedule regular meetings of the board. Since I've been on this board, we've been meeting at 7 o'clock regularly. When we needed to pivot, board members have been able to make it here earlier. We're getting ready to go into standard time, as it's getting darker earlier. We have at least one board member who frequently walks to and fro, that still worries me, frequently walks to and from board meetings.
Both of us.
Two frequently walk to and from board meetings, and they tend to run sometimes like tonight, kind of late. There are other nights where we're able to get out of here in 30 minutes, sometimes not. And so it is with that I introduce the next motion, which is resolved that the Oak Park Board of Education hereby adopts the change in the schedule of regular board meetings from start time of 7 p.m. to 6 p.m.
Support.
Motion made by myself, seconded by trustee Smith, trustee Hoyt. Do you have questions?
Yeah, so when we've looked at this in the past, the concern has been from administration having enough time after the end of the school day to prepare for the board meeting. Is that a concern?
That is not a concern.
Maria's like, no. Get it over.
I checked with the administration. I should have prefaced that. I checked with the administration. I checked with Ms. Greer. I asked the administration to check with our attorneys to make sure there's no issue here. Do you have any additional questions?
That was the question.
Trustee Corcoran.
I just wanted to say that we have maybe two more months before January. And our bylaws number 1002 reads the annual organizational meeting will be held annually during the months of January. The business of the meeting will include the election of the board offices, which we have an election that is coming up, the establishment of a schedule of regular board meetings for the year in such our business as the board may choose to address. So I'm asking that if we are going to change this time for it to reflect in January, once we get the new members on the board.
If the new members want to make a change when they get here, they can. We don't usually do this, I know what it says. We usually approve the schedule long before that meeting. That meeting has not been done to use to approve any schedule at all. We've done that long before we even get there. If those members come on and decide that 6 o'clock doesn't work for them, they're more than welcome to vote in mass to change it. But until that time, I'm put this motion on the floor.
I have another one. So I would say that we're out of order based on the fact that it does state also about having the two board meetings, excuse me one second, I'll pull it up. But it says to also have under the, one moment, changing, bylaws and policies about having two meetings.
We're not changing the policy or a bylaw.
True, but we're changing the time that we've had for the last, as I can remember, 30, 40 years. I don't remember any other time. So we're changing it, but I thought we were to have it as an informational item before we have an actual action item.
If there's
So
a
is
change
that
if there's a change to the policy.
So
there's
that's
no
not in
change
the
to it.
policy.
There's
Is that
no
what you're
change-
saying?
There's no change to the policy here.
So where does our time fall into? A policy, a bylaw, we just come when we want? Where is that for us to?
If you look at the
go by?
policies now, do you see in the policies where it says the meeting shall occur at X time?
No, I don't see that. I see everything but that. It used to be, it was taken out. However, I was just saying that we've had that time for that long of a period. And then for us to now change it 2 months prior to January, when we actually usually have our organizational meeting, I'm just saying, what's 2 more months?
We don't have to change it at all. You can vote no. The rest of the board can
Sir,
vote no
I
too.
understand that, but what I'm saying is that we're talking about it in discussion, correct? You're right, I can't just say no and just not say anything. That's what you're saying, correct?
I'm saying the board.
Because you just said I can just say, go ahead.
I was answering your question. I'm saying the board can choose to vote no right now, and there will be no change at all.
Understood.
Okay, any additional questions?
So yes, are we just out of order? I don't understand. I just
We
thought
are not,
that it fall- I
to your,
thought-
to your.
Excuse me, hold on, let me ask my question. Hold on.
I thought you did, I'm sorry.
No, I thought that when we have a discussion to something, it comes under the informational item before an action item. We never had a discussion prior to this subject until just now.
There is
So
no
is it a reason why
requirement,
we're-
yeah, there's no requirement for it to be an information item before, only if we're changing a policy.
Okay,
This isn't a policy change. So because there's
so
no,
what is it then? Where is it in the policy that is saying that our time starts for us to even change it?
it doesn't, it's not in the policy document, nor should it be.
I mean, but how did we come up with our start time?
I don't know how you came up with this start time, I wasn't here.
We passed the schedule at the organizational meeting
Oh,
in
you mean
July.
for this year?
It was the posted document that you're amending tonight.
Okay.
For this year, we included that as part of the dates, if that's what you're talking about.
So what I just read about in January is what the dates you're talking about.
Didn't happen in
Or
January.
we do our organization meeting in August, I believe it is?
No, we do
July.
not,
Or
but it,
what month is that? That we do the organizational meeting, where we get the dates?
the organization meeting, you're right, is done in January. But this did not, we don't set our schedule in January, we have not.
What month do we set our schedule in?
July,
What is July?
Beginning of
Yeah,
the
it's July
fiscal year.
'cause it's the end of the
beginning of the school year.
Mhm. So July. Okay.
Anything else? And to your point about us being out of order, I guess I should at least rule on that. I think we're in order, we're not out of order.
Okay, so every time we have so now we can just have an action item before we actually have an informational item, is what you're saying?
We've been able to do that, and we've done it in some situations. This isn't the
So is
first
that
one.
not out of order? You saying that's, we,
I don't, so let's go back. When you say out of order, you're talking about procedure.
as far as the
Right.
agenda, correct?
You're talking about procedure.
Yep.
Right? And so what in a procedural document can you point to show that this motion is out of order?
It's not there. I mean, because in the past practice is what I'm talking about.
Past
in the
practice
past-
does not make us out of order.
Oh, okay.
Out
so
of
which
order
what
is
we
when-
wanna
if you-
do then? What are you saying? We have no order?
I would not dare say that I can do what I want.
Well, but if there is,
What I'm telling you is that there's no document that you can point to show that this motion is improper.
all of the
You're saying-
agendas that we've had, you're saying I can't go back and point at that?
Mr. President, I call the vote.
Okay,
Call the question.
he's moved for us to call the question and end debate. So now we're going to vote on whether to
Okay.
end debate. So,
Can I just say one more thing?
no, you
Can it be
cannot,
6:30
there's
instead
no,
of
there is
motion?
there's no discussion on this particular motion at this time. The motion on the floor at this time is to end debate and call the question.
Understood.
Okay. Ms. Greer, please call the roll on that motion.
Smith,
Yes.
Davis,
Yes.
Elvin,
Yes.
Hoda,
Yes.
Madison.
Yes.
Copeland,
No.
Clark.
Yes.
Okay, and that motion needs to pass by a 2/3, I believe. And so it has done that, 6-1. So we're going to end debate and answer and call the question. The question on the floor is resolved that the Oak Park Board of Education hereby adopt a change in schedule of regular board meeting from a start time of 7 p.m. to 6 p.m. I should clarify this motion since I made it through June 2025. And since I made a clarification to that motion, I'm going to ask for another second.
Second.
Thank you. Is there any debate on that motion?
Yes.
Go ahead.
I am asking that we start at 6:30 instead of 7 o'clock. I mean, excuse me.
We have to shoot down this motion and then they can come back for 6.
Oh, my bad. I'm sorry.
So- Okay. but it has to be voted down first.
Yep.
Okay.
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
Anything else? Ms. Greer, please call the roll.
What am I calling the vote? Her? What am I calling the vote?
On the main motion for us, but remember that it adds through June 2020.
2025. Clark,
Yes.
Copeland,
No.
Madison,
Yes.
Hoda,
Yes.
Elvin,
Yes.
Davis, and Smith.
Yes.
Motion passes. We'll go to item number 8D, Rethink Solution Service. Trustee Smith.
Yes. Rethink Solutions, excuse me, my bad. Resolved that the Oak Park Board of Education authorizes the superintendent and his designee to utilize Rethink Solution Services as needed to ensure that special education resources are adequately met.
Second.
Motion made by trustee Smith, seconded by trustee Clark. Trustee Hoyle has a question. You have the floor.
Thank you. Was there a bid process that was used to settle on this contract?
No, I had two people, two different quotes. We're basically looking for psych services to do the evaluations. Right now, we're low on psychologists. The two costs that I got were $750 and $1,250. Knowing that one came recommended by our interim special education director, and they were the lowest of the two, and they were the most ready to enter, we selected that one.
Any additional questions? Ms. Greer, please call the roll.
Copeland,
Yes.
Davis,
Yes.
Clark,
Yes.
Elvin,
Yes.
Madison,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
and Hoda.
Yes.
Okay, the motion passes. Item number 9, we don't have any information to add. We'll go to item 10, Board and Administration communications. Are there any communications from members of the administration? None? From members of the board? Tell us about it.
Me?
You.
Me?
Go.
Okay. I'll be quick because I know we all want to go home. I just want to thank Superintendent Abdullah for allowing me and my family to represent the schools for a trunk or treat. It was a wonderful time. I believe we had over 800 children, about 1,500 people total. So it was a wonderful, well-received, the games, the music. It was a great event. Thank you, Tiffany, for dialoguing with me about everything we needed to have. My brain just lost me. So it was a great event. We had a great time. Our theme was very well received, and hopefully we'll be able to do it again next year.
Thank you for your service on that.
And thank you for the candy.
Did
as
we get
well.
nerds? That's all I want.
I might have some nerds in here, I'll check. But thank you.
Great nerds, that's vital to any Halloween. Okay. Trustee Madison, you have something?
Oh, no.
Okay. Trustee Smith?
Yes, I wanted to, I just want to, let you know that myself and trustee Clark were able to, as well as the virtual attendance of trustee Davis and trustee Corcoran, attending the 2024 MASB Annual Leadership Conference in Lansing. It was a really, really thorough and uplifting event. A lot of knowledge in regards to some of the changes in school policy were communicated by our legal department, our legal teams for MASB. When we went to our delegate assembly, I'm sorry.
Oh, boy.
You know, it's always funny about the play on words, but policies to be changed in regards to the word healthy.
Healthy and health.
Healthful. Healthy and healthful initiative by the school district. So we spent some time on that one and had, a number of policies we voted on. Yeah, so it's just real funny, But, there is why we have Robert's Rules of Orders and process in place, parliamentary processes. There were phenomenal speakers. At the event. got it different this time because some of them are kind of humorous, but they hit the points exactly. We gave the superintendent a couple little doodads in reference to those.
Got 'em here.
Yeah, you got 'em here. Ditty bag, and also CBA class. Well, I didn't necessarily take CBA classes. However, I did a number of workshops around parliamentary procedure and leading, leadership. So it was a really outstanding event and really rewarding. So I just want to thank the district for allowing us to attend. Thank you.
And I did attend virtually, and it was, the social worker in me was so thrilled at the keynote speakers that they had, because it really spoke to the heart and why we do the work that we do. So it was a great conference that kept me engaged virtually, so I will say it was excellent. So, yes.
Okay. Yep, trustee, I was just getting ready to say, trustee Corcoran, your turn.
Actually, I had two things. Going back to the trunk or treat, I didn't understand the partnership, because I was there. What type of, what's the partnership?
So we bought a sponsorship spot with Oak Park Schools, but with City of Oak Park. This is my second year. It's like advertising, it's like going to the Mount Educators Caucus that we went to, or advertising. We got a lot of feedback, but I couldn't be present. I know Ms. Clark was active in the community. I asked her to represent us. She volunteered her time. We had a great turnout, and it's a great connection, so.
I was there, and it was great. It really was.
I appreciate your attendance.
Linda was there. It was
Yeah.
wonderful. We really did have a
It
good
was
time. It was a lot of kids. It was no time to stop. Like, the kids were coming, like they were coming. And I can say, when they say bring 1,000 pieces, they really meant 2,000 pieces. And also with the virtual classes that we did have, MASD, they're always on target. We always come out learning something more and more, the more that we engage in their classes. So I just want to say that, and I'm done.
Thank you. Anything else from members of the board? Okay, item 11, addenda, any addenda at all? Hearing none, we'll go to item 12, adjournment. Go for it.
The next meeting of the Board of Education will be held on Monday, November the 11th, 2024 at 7 o'clock.
6. 6 p.m.
At 6. At 6 p.m. in the boardroom at the administration building.
If nothing else, without objection, we'll pass a motion to adjourn the meeting by unanimous consent. Is there an objection to doing so? Hearing none, we're hereby adjourned at 9:09. Thank you.